When someone says gender bias in education, most people believe that this only affects female students. In actuality, gender bias in education affects all students. In 1972, a number of educational amendments was passed into law. Among them was Title IX, which was intended to protect students from discrimination based on gender in federally funded educational facilities and activities. This includes both transgender and gender nonconforming students as well. Despite the intentions of Title IX, students of all gender identities still face discrimination in American public schools. A strong misunderstanding in American society and our school system is that if we give girls, trans, and non-binary students a leg up in the current educational atmosphere, the boys will fall behind. However, all genders receive a certain amount of bias against them. Many teachers hold specific expectations of male and female students, and this kind of gendered stereotyping harms everyone. Boys are seen as rowdier and more likely to have behavioral problems in the classroom, thus also making them punished more so than female students. Outside of the classroom, gender norms negatively affect boys' performance in school as well. American society teaches boys not to indulge in anything considered to be feminine. Unfortunately, many boys have considered art, reading, and writing to be feminine subjects, and thus have no interest in either, stating that it threatens their masculinity. This gendering of school subjects has negative effects on all genders. It is not unknown that girls are not encouraged as often as boys to pursue math, science, and technology, as they have historically been considered boy subjects. There is also a false perception that gendered equality is no longer an issue at all, let alone in the school system. Yet, there are still many ways that gender inequality shows itself in the classroom. One of these ways is in who receives the teacher's attention. For instance, teachers are more likely to pay attention and call on male students rather than females. They tend to wait longer for a response from the boys as well. When boys call out in class, teachers are more likely to respond to them instead of reprimanding them. The same is not true for their female counterparts. Girls are also more likely to experience sexual harassment in school. 4 out of 5 young girls report being sexually harassed in some way during school. Even when these incidents occur in front of faculty, only half of them ever have action taken. In terms of special education and gifted education, boys tend to benefit more than girls do. In a 2011 study, researchers found a significant pattern in how teachers refer students for gifted programs. Given the same exact profile for 2 students, one male and one female, teachers were much more likely to nominate the male student for gifted programs, even though the female student shared the same characteristics. They also tended to view the female student negatively and viewed her not ready for gifted programs based on lack of social skills, whereas they viewed the male profile positively and saw him in need of a challenge. In special education, boys are also favored. In the 2000 census, there were twice as many male students in special education than there were female students. Boys tend to act out more in the classroom, and their behavioral issues tend to get them referred to special education more often. On the other hand, girls tend to not cause as many behavioral problems, and their low achievements do not hold high priority with special education referrals. Only once female students start to act out do teachers begin to notice that they have special learning needs. A separate but related concern in education regarding gender bias is bias towards transgendered or gender nonconforming students. In 2015, we are seeing an increase in the visibility of these students and an attempt at normalizing this within our society. So how do these students fit into our schooling system? While these students are technically protected under Title IX, many places, like District 211 in Palatine, Illinois, continue to violate the law by refusing these students access to necessary facilities. Many school districts have not put regulations or guidelines in place for dealing with transgender and gender nonconforming students. Despite that, we are still moving in that direction, as New York State has put in place a set of guidelines aimed at protecting transgender and gender nonconforming students. In years to come, it is likely that this issue will continue to come to the forefront of discussions of gender bias, equality, and equity in education. So what can we do about all of these issues? Teachers can start by observing how gender bias affects their own classroom and take steps to avoid falling back on gendered stereotyping. We as a society need to take steps to remove the assumptions that there are feminine and masculine subjects and encourage students to pursue subjects despite existing gendered norms. We also need to create spaces where female students are given as much attention as male students, and where they feel safe answering questions and participating in class. Safe spaces are also necessary for students who fall outside of gender norms, and we must work together to create them. Gender bias in education is an important topic and one that will not be fixed until we acknowledge the harm it does to us all.